Hello and welcome back to Outside the Box, an MLS podcast. My name is Wanners.
This is Daniel.
I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Joss.
And we are here with our big prediction show. The MLS season is literally right around the corner this weekend. Teams, get going. I kind of want to get a general vibe check before we go straight into the weeds of all of our predictions here, of all the conversations. How are you guys feeling about your team? Just optimistic, pessimistic, whatever you feel. Jeremy, we'll start with you. How are you feeling? Quick take about the Timbers.
I'm happy that whatever nonsense has been occurring over this past 6 months with Evander is finally over with, and I could just focus on the soccer again.
What about you, Josh? How are you feeling about the SKC at the moment?
We gave into the woke mind virus and moved the game against Miami tomorrow because of cold. This never would have happened in a real America.
In America with Pro Rel, I think you really have seen it. I think that proves, Messi really couldn't even attempt to do it on a snowy night in KC.
Yeah.
Daniel, how you feeling about Charlotte?
I'm feeling great, man. We looked awesome in the preseason. We got one of the deepest midfield in the league. I'm excited to get back into the fortress and feel that energy again. I'm excited. It's gonna be a good year.
Now, before we started the pod, we did predictions. We kind of outlined, the old fan favorite of predicting where MLS teams are going to fall. The bold, attempt from many people to, try and play the magician here. Spent a lot of time talking before. Daniel, I'm sure you got our weighted results. Please let us know what the cumulative average ranking for the MLS Eastern Conference is.
The average ranking. So, do you want me to go team by team?
Yes, you could go. Let's go from first.
Okay,
first
so
to
we'll
last.
start. Okay, we'll start. Actually, we'll do it that way. Why not? So, as an average, us four, we have Atlanta United as first. We are all mixed up with who we think is going to be second. So it's a mix between Charlotte and Cincinnati for the second and third spot. Inter Miami, fourth. And then we have Orlando sixth because we were all over the board with where they think they are going to fall. So we actually skipped the fifth spot. Red Bull seven.
Okay.
We skip 8 because we're a little bit mixed up on our opinions again. We go right to 9 with Montreal, 10 Chicago, 11 New England, 12 DC United, 13 Philly, 14 Toronto, and then 15. Actually, there was no 15 because we skipped a number. So actually, we all predicted Toronto would finish last. Good job, guys.
Well, I do see Philadelphia there as a 13, and I'm gonna make the case for them being the wooden spoon winner. I don't know how you guys feel about Philly, but what better way than to stand on a down. But Philly, man, they have 3 center backs on the rosters. Need I say more?
Yeah, I'm gonna need some elaboration.
No.
Yeah, no. We need some elaboration.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have Jacob Glesnes, you have Glavinovic, a foreign signing from the Argentine league, and then I'm gonna butcher his name. I think it's Mac. I can't even say McKenya. Yeah, that center back core over the course of 34 games. I don't think. I mean, they were done, a favor by the Colorado Rapids in that third place game. Because could you imagine this team lacing it up for Champions Cup? I mean, they lost Jack McGlynn as well, and that guy was pretty much your, future playmaker, and he was by and large the team's primary outlet. Now, Daniel, I know you brought up Andre Blake. but I don't think this team is an Andre Blake team away from meaningfully competing in MLS. What do you guys feel?
I think that Philly is going to be terrible. I think they've lost too much. But compared to the vibes in Toronto, I think this spoon dogfight between Philly and Toronto, two teams that have both made MLS Cup within the past 5 years, is going to be it's going to be pure box office. And what Philly doesn't have in center backs, Toronto doesn't have in their star players actually wanting to like play or actually leave and just being content to collect a paycheck. You can't have a player like that on your team and expect to compete. And Toronto's also bringing in a new coach, Robin Fraser, who has also presided over just some truly horrific teams. So I feel like Toronto, this is like 1 year of them sinking all the way to the bottom before the real work can begin next offseason. If I was a Toronto fan, I'd be less excited than if I was a Philadelphia Union.
So I'm gonna call out both Juan, Josh, and Jeremy here because they have Philly finishing 15th, 15th, 14th. I have them finishing 9th. I'm a little bit more of a believer in what they can do over there in Philly. I think they were Andre Blake last year away from being a playoff team, and I'm on the edge of saying, depending on how this season start, I'd put a pinky bet on Philadelphia making the playoffs for sure, being a wild card team at least.
You
Oh,
do
wow.
realize that Jim Curtin got fired, right?
I mean, they brought in Jim Curtin Light. How much more do you expect to change? And then, yeah, Jack McGlynn was a good midfielder, but he never really fit that system. He was just good enough to kind of blend in. He was not a fast enough midfielder to do what they needed him to do.
I don't know, dude. Now you're relying on 38-year-old Alejandro Bedoya, and I don't think that's the guy to, I don't think that's the guy you want over the course of 34 games in a Bradley Carnell system. Like, I don't know. It's just like I'm more so. I believe in Robin Fraser. Honestly, I think he can course correct Toronto enough to not be the worst team, which is an improvement because they were quite literally the worst team last year. So that's the bar for Toronto, and for Philly, it's I don't know. I think it's dog days ahead for that organization. Maybe Kevin pops off the Kevin Sullivan hype train, but I don't know.
I'm expecting guys like Nathan Harriel. I'm expecting him to make the jump. I'm expecting a Quinn Sullivan to make the jump as they continue to get older. They've been in the system for a while now, and if those jumps don't happen, your guys' prediction do likely happen. But I'm a believer in their academy. I'm a believer in the young guys that they have. That's probably what goes into my opinion of them being a bubble team for sure.
So you have New England though at last, and everyone else here. I mean, Jeremy's very high on New England. You think New England's a playoff team? And me and Josh both have them at 11. I don't know what sells you about this team, Jeremy.
I like Langione. I like Chonkalai. And I like how busy their offseason was. How Porter recognized that he wanted to get his guys in there. And I see this as a building year for New England. So I think their ambitious offseason, which I think was the busiest out of every team not named San Diego, and I think maybe Dallas can also be included in there. They've done a lot of work to make this team better from the starting unit and have better depth. And I think that in a crowd of Eastern Conference teams that could very well be viewed as fringe playoff teams, I think they can easily find their way into the playoffs, especially around number 8, because that's where I have them in these standings. I think they could actually surprise a lot of people. But even so, if they do surprise a lot of people, you'd point to that transfer window. So I think they're going to be pretty good.
Josh,
Would you argue that they did a lot of work to become San Jose from 2024?
I do not think that they did. Well, first of all, that San Jose team was terrific defensively, and I think for New England, they're just going to get better. They're going to get better defensively, which raises the floor. And when you have a guy like Carlos Hill, and he is surrounded by other good wingers like Chonkalai and Langione, who I've already mentioned, and then also Leo Campana, who I think can easily hit double digits with a full-time starting role. So I see Campana kind of as a striker that Porter can use, much like he used Fernando Adi in Portland. Just a big guy up top who can knock balls down and knows where to be in the box to score some goals. So I think New England really improved. The ceiling for how much they improved is just how much better the rest of the East is than them and how much ground they have to make up. But there's absolutely a spot in the playoffs for them.
I want to talk about Montreal because we all have them at various different spots. We have 10 for me. Josh has them at 8th, Jeremy at 12th, and Daniel has them at 5th. Josh, what makes this Montreal team a playoff team in your opinion? Like, what are you seeing here? Because I will admit I did have Montreal as a playoff team as well, but Jeremy kind of talked me off the ledge of their inclusion there. What are you liking about Montreal?
I could be talked off the ledge here too, I'll be honest, but I do think one thing about Montreal is just they were good last year, right? And I think they have that stability about them. I think of players like Piet. I think of players like Veroni. You know, I mean, I know they brought in Veroni, but I just think like overall they've always kind of been a very solid performing team. And out of all the Canadian teams in Major League Soccer, I do think of them as probably the most the team that has the most going for them right now. I've always just really liked I've always just really liked Montreal for what they've given to the league. And even though I don't feel like I don't have a lot of backing behind my reasoning for this, I just feel like overall they always sort of fly under the radar for me specifically. So this year for my predictions, I didn't want them to fly under the radar. I wanted to make sure that I gave them what I think their dues were and put them in where I think they deserve, which is to be like a bubble playoff team.
All right, Jeremy, talk Mr. Bathtub off the ledge here.
I'm just not convinced by the star power on this team. Who is going to be scoring the goals, most importantly? Because I do believe in Laurent Courtois. I think he's a good coach, but he's going to be a Wilfried Nancy disciple for a team that doesn't really have a true star attacker. And in order for Nancy Ball to work, you need a guy in that final third who's either going to be scoring the goals or who's going to be creating them. I don't see a guy like that on this roster at all. But once again, I think that severely limits their ceiling. I'm not like incredibly low on them. I just think that there's kind of a mess of Eastern Conference teams around that playoff line. And I just don't think they have the top end quality and attack to get above the playoff line, especially with how the other teams around them have improved. Also, they did lose Gabriela Corbo, who very underrated center back, and a lot of the underlying numbers really like him. They're probably going to end up replacing him with Jalen Neal, who was starting for the Galaxy at a point last year, but then lost his starting job. So I like what they do with the youth movement. I like what they do in terms of their game model, but I just don't think that you can have that youth movement and that game model without also adding some stars in there and some legitimate match winners. Like if this Montreal team had a player of the caliber, let's say Ignacio Piatti, I'd say they'd be knocking on the top 4. But they don't have a player like that. And there's a huge gap in there they need to fill.
You're not moved by Vrioni?
Yeah, Vrioni season, bro. Vrioni season.
That's what I'm saying. That's what
I think
saying.
it might happen. That's the only reason I have him up there.
Yeah, he needed a change. He needed a change of pace. And I mean, he was the Revs' top goal scorer last year, so maybe a change into a new system somewhere, um, somewhere where he can just, I don't know, be himself. Maybe not. Maybe he wants to be the center, the focal point. Almost. Maybe this is just the right move for him. I think that this could be the place where he kind of kicks on. But I mean, we saw what they did with Josef Martinez, for example. You know, he was want away at Miami. They deemed him surplus to requirements. He goes to Montreal, and he has a decent season. I think that, you know, maybe something like that for Vrioni could be on the cards.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for a Vrioni turnaround because we love some Albanian strikers. We knew one in Gelson Gashi in Colorado, and so just love to see the Albanians pop off. Real Dua Lipa energy that we bring here in MLS, and it's only really possible through Albanian finishers. Moving on.
I do have one more point about Montreal too. This ranking is also about how I have very little faith in them on the road. This team went on the road last year. They kept getting pantsed. And if you're going to be a playoff team, you have to find a way to win games on the road. I'm not convinced by their road form at all. And usually with the way the schedule is loaded, they have road games early in the season, and then they have to kind of dig themselves out of that hole as the calendar turns to the summer months. So I'm just not convinced they're going to be able to dig themselves out of the hole that early. But I could be wrong. I just think there's just a mess of teams there in the East.
Let's talk about a little bit more of an exciting project in Chicago Fire. I'm very, very, very bullish on the Chicago Fire. I have them as high as 4th, but everyone else seems to have them, you know, next best is Jeremy at 9th, and then Josh 13th. Daniel thinks they're going to be second worst. Daniel, what aren't you seeing in Chicago, man?
If I'm being frank, it's just a vibes pick. I mean, they had given me no reason in the last half decade to believe that they are even capable of being a playoff team. That's about as much justification as I can give. So my thought process through all of this was, how was their form last year, and did they do anything to improve themselves within the standing of the league, right? If I'm looking at Chicago, they captured 5 points from their last 10 games last year. And then I stacked it up and I say, okay, did they add enough? Is Greg Berhalter's first year enough to get them over that edge and make them not be a bottom feeder in the East? And when I rationalize that in my head, the answer is just no. And I would love to be persuaded by you as to why that they could potentially be a playoff team.
Well, I want to hear from Josh as well, why he doesn't see it, why he doesn't see the vision here.
I don't think they went out and made the splash in the DP market that I think they should have. I know that, you know, Jonathan Bamba joining might have been a big signing 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't think he's at that level that the Chicago Fire need him to be at now. I know they also brought in Philip Zinkernagel, which in terms of name, he passes the name test by far. Like, guy named Zinkernagel, he was always destined to be in the public eye. So for that, I give him credit. And I do feel bad. I do feel bad for anybody who works in the Chicago Fire team store and they got to print that guy's name on the back because, oh my god. But overall, I'm not as moved by their signings. I do think Jack Elliott was a very smart pickup from Philadelphia. I've always thought that he was very good. I wanted Sporting Kansas City to go and get him. But overall, I don't think in the attack wise, I don't think they did enough. I just have shades of Xherdan Shaqiri with this Jonathan Bamba signing, and I think that is all I need to say about that.
I'm going to sell you on Chicago here because I see it quite the opposite. I see, you know, you guys say the incomings haven't been good. I think the outgoings are addition by subtraction. Sishos gone. He's a chaotic center back. Often one you would like to not have because, you know, he's always going to be good for a random mistake here or there, but he's gone. Herbers is gone. He never elevated his game. Koutsias is gone. He was kind of the, you know, in that realm of underperforming strikers. Gaston Jimenez, Federico Navarro, who I've never had much faith in the midfield. Those two guys are gone. Salquist and Suke, who they actually have to buy out Arnaud Suke because he was just that bad. Those guys are gone. So I think Berhalter has come in and said, I'm shaving off all the fat to this team, and we're gonna go out and get guys like Zinkernagel, who is kind of a mercenary. There is a little, there is kind of concerns about, his kind of commitment here. Is gonna be I think his 8th club in the last 7 years or something like that. Might be 7 in the last 6, but I still think he's a better player than they had last year. Barroso and Sam Rogers are interesting center back prospects. I won't really sell you on them, but I do think Jonathan Bamba is an actually good pick, and I think this team has Hugo Kuipers on it. You cannot discredit Hugo Kuipers with Kellen Acosta and Gutierrez, playing as a dual midfield role. I'm just really excited for Chicago, man. And you can't discredit Berhalter either. He was, a standout coach with Columbus Crew, and one of the more winningest coaches in MLS. I think he does really well in his first year here, more so than like New England, honestly.
I'm also more in line with Juan's assessment of Chicago, but I just don't think that Gutierrez is the 10 that they all think he is. I think that if they had gone out and also gotten another DP10 in addition to the other business that they've done, I could definitely talk myself into 4th place for this team. Jack Elliott, huge add. Humongous addition to their defense. I'm a huge fan of a lot of their business, especially, like what Juan said, the addition by subtraction. However, it is year 1. Berhalter has a very specific game model that he wants to follow, and it's going to take time to instill it into this team. But they're still a playoff team. They're absolutely a playoff team. Kuipers is incredible.
Kuipers is going to... We'll talk about it later, but he's up there for me as exciting pick here. Let's talk Inter Miami. Everyone has him pretty high up. I'm thinking a collapse maybe imminent, more personality pick. I have him in 8th just because competition fatigue could likely set in, and you're relying still on Suarez to get the job done. It's going to come back to bite them eventually, like the age and the experience. They keep kind of proving the haters wrong, but I think the decline is set to happen just with the personalities there. But it's Messi, right? Like it's fucking Lionel Messi. So if anyone is really gung ho about Miami being in their spot, the floor is yours, really.
My reasoning for picking Miami at 3rd is because they had a really good stretch of games last year without Messi in the lineup. And I just think that they're a very, very, very good team. They have one of the most well-constructed rosters in the league still. I do think they took a little bit of a depth hit, but their floor is still very, very high. So, yeah, they're not going to win the Shield again. It's pretty blatantly obvious to me that they're nowhere near a Shield team but I think they can still enjoy a little bit of a step back and still be comfortably within the top 4 in the East.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that. I think we're going to get probably a year and a half here of Lionel Messi going balls to the walls prior to World Cup 2026. So I do think that he's going to do everything in his power to stay fit, stay healthy. That alone makes them dangerous. I just can't put them at 1 because I do believe the top end of the East has gotten significantly better. Just overall top to bottom talent. So just because of the gauntlet itself, season long, healthy Messi makes them good enough to beat anybody, but I don't think they're going to have the form to maintain what they did last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Daniel. I do also want to touch on head coach change. They changed from Tata Martino to Javier Mascherano, and for me, Mascherano really only has coaching experience at the international level, and not even at the full international level. It was Argentina's youth teams that he was coaching. So bringing him in, and we were talking beforehand, Juan, and you said that it's probably to keep Messi and his can I say cronies? I don't even know if I can say cronies because it's not like they are. But Messi and his boys keep them all happy, keep them all, satisfied. I'm not sure if how good Mascherano ball will really be and how well that'll translate to on the field performance. But when you have the GOAT, when you have Luis Suarez, when you have the real GOAT and Fafa Pico, anything can happen.
Fafa Peak Goat, right?
Nice.
I'm gonna go myself. Besides that, are we feeling like Atlanta bought the supporter shield?
I'm the only one who didn't pick them to finish first in the East because I think it just depends on how much time all of their new signings can gel together. But easily top two. They're going to be a fantastic team.
It's shield or bust for me, honestly, because you spent a lot of money. You got to make sure it pays off. How are you guys feeling about it? I know Josh and Daniel have them also up there at 1, but yeah, what do you guys think?
I think they're going to be incredibly dangerous in the attack. Their midfield got even better over the off season. I think it's one of those things where we're all waiting for it to happen, where Brad Guzan just falls off the ledge, and it's like, how many more years can he hang on? And I don't think it's going to be this year, which is why I have them placed so high. But I mean, if they don't, he's the only reason why I couldn't see they don't, if that makes sense. Outside of injuries, which no one can predict this early on, but outside of like a Brad Guzan disaster for the entire 2025 season, I just can't picture them not being first or second in the East.
Yeah. I also have them as finishing first and winning the Shield. They're my Shield winners. And I think the best thing that summarizes it is that there is not the noticeable weakness that we all talk about with this Atlanta team is, can they stay healthy and can they build chemistry? And when when you're talking about hypotheticals, you have a good team. So for me, that's what makes them so good and makes me so high on them. Plus, Miggy Almiron's back. I'm so excited to see what he does. I do think they probably exactly vibes, right? And I do think they probably overspent on Latte Lath, but again, I mean their owner's worth like $9 billion, right? So he can. This is pocket change for the Blank family. So overall, I'm really high on them. I think they went out and they spent money where they needed to, and that attack is so good. I really think that Miranchuk, now that he has a year, or I guess half a year
and a preseason
of experience, and a preseason, right? A half a year and a preseason in Major League Soccer. I mean, this is the team that beat the Supporter Shield winners Miami last year over 2 legs. Like I don't think that can be really understated how impressive that is. So that's why I'm high on Atlanta. They were good last year. I think they improved since then, and I really think that they kick on. It's shield or bust for me as well.
I think just to build upon that, I think the ownership over at Atlanta finally gave Mercedes-Benz a reason to get packed out again for home games, and I'm excited to see the scenes from that. I think it's going to be absolutely electric. It's what Atlanta fans have been asking for forever, so I'm excited for them.
Who's Miggy gonna do the celebration with? The Goku celebration.
I don't think he'll do it with anybody. It'll be like cheating.
It'll be nobody. He'll do it with nobody.
I think so. It's just a little throwback, especially for his first goal. I think he does do it, but then maybe he works something out with one of his teammates.
He has to make sure he's pointing west, and Joseph is pointing the other way.
Yeah.
When they do it.
Yeah, Joseph. Yeah, whatever cardinal direction Joseph's playing in, Mickey has to point that way.
Yeah. What if that'd be crazy if they do Atlanta and San Jose don't play each other, do they? I can't tell if that's a marquee. That would have been a marquee match. Oh my God, in the Benz.
Actually true. Yeah. Man,
they missed out. MLS, you done fucked up. Let's talk about Cincinnati before talking about the West. Cincinnati, obviously, in the transfer round, merry-go-round, they have Jeremy's boy, Evander. How do you feel about the Evander saga, man? final conclusion, some closure right before the season, but man, it took a minute to get here.
It absolutely did. And I think that Evander going to Cincinnati immediately makes them my Shield winner because he isn't going to do everything that Acosta did, but also Acosta was able to do a lot despite having a largely rotating cast last year. His season last season was statistically more impressive than what he did in 2023 when he won the MVP. But the main reason why I have Cincinnati so high is because they are kind of a model organization since Chris Albright and Pat Noonan. And I really enjoy seeing teams with high floors, instilled tactical philosophies, and ambition of their own. Because while Latte Lath came in, he broke a transfer record for the most money spent on an incoming player that was previously held by Kevin Danke, the new Cincinnati striker, who was signed or announced one day after they got eliminated. I don't think that Cincinnati took last year's postseason disappointment and were moping around about it. They said, we are going to get better. We are going to become the Shield champions again. And I just see once again, a fully complete and built Cincinnati team ready to challenge for the Shield. And I think they'll do it.
Anyone else feeling that high about Cincy?
I am. They're second. I have them second in my preseason predictions. And defense wins you championships, and their defense over the past 3 years, 2-3 years, has been so solid. It's been such a change from what it was when they first joined the league, and they were just leaking goals for fun, winning spoons for fun. You know, Matt Miazga, Miles Robinson, both. I mean, these are they start for any team in the league, I think, and they're both at Cincinnati. And just to echo what Jeremy was saying, Evander and Danke, if they can kick on, I'm really high on them. I really want to see Cincinnati do well because of the disappointment from last season. I think they really took that disappointment and turned it into, okay, here's how we improve. And they've gone out to the transfer market, and they did.
My biggest takeaway is no Kip Keller, so they're gonna definitely miss. They're gonna definitely miss him, I think. No, I the defense. I just worry if either of those guys go down, because the next options ain't gonna be Ian Murphy, who's reliable. It's not gonna be Awazium, who you brought into the league only for the Rapids to pick him up, due to salary dispute. But the backline depth is tough, and if I have to see Yedlin playing at the center back position at any point in the season, that's how I'll know that there's kind of frailty there. Because I'll talk about it for Lucho in a little bit, but I do agree. I think you guys have sold me on Evander. I think he probably is a game riser more than Luciano Acosta, and he's going to have a good defensive core behind him. So, dang, maybe Cincinnati is the move, especially Danke, man. Danke's going to be fun to watch for sure.
I don't know, man. They just weren't. They were not the same team the second half of last year they were the first half.
I agree.
Because they struggled to score goals. And yeah, Danke's a great signing. Evander's an amazing signing, but Evander wasn't with them for preseason. I'm just not as high on them. I think they're one of those teams where they're going to start off a little bit slower this year and then pick it up in the second half as they continue to gel as a team, as long as they stay healthy. But I'm not as high on them as Josh and Jeremy are.
Let's head over to the Western Conference. Consensus seems to favor two teams at the top of the table here. Looks like LAFC and Seattle Sounders. Looks like either one of them could be first or second. I'm not happy about that. I more so because the Sounders are they're just always a bane, but no one has them less than 3 I got him at 3. Jeremy's got him at 3. Josh has him at 1, and Daniel's got him at 1. So I guess we'll start with the Sounders as if they couldn't get enough coverage. Tell us, Daniel, what are you seeing about Seattle here, man?
I think it's for the most part, it's a lot of the same from last year. And then they went off and added significant depth pieces. They don't just look like they're going to make a run for the Shield. They don't just look like they're going to be top of the West. They look like they're primed to make a run pretty much in every competition that they're in with the depth that they've accumulated. It really is impressive. When you think about where their goals are going to come from, they can literally come from any part of the pitch, which is impressive because that seems to be a problem a lot of teams in the middle of the pack have is can they have the ability to be unpredictable with where the goals are going to come from. You can't just focus on one side, and that's gonna slash a lot of these teams in the West, particularly the bottom end of it. Because I think the top end of the West, while it's really really tough, I just don't see the same level as you get down to like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 through 15. So because of that, I mean, outside of your LAFCs, I think Houston's going to be strong. Minnesota's going to be really strong. Outside of those teams, I don't really know who's going to be able to hang with them for an entire season.
Jeremy?
I get to talk about the Seattle Sounders?
Of course. you're
Okay.
the Sounders expert. I'm sure a lot of
I
Sounders fans will be happy that I said that.
First of all, speaking of Sounders fans, I did somehow backhand compliment their newest jersey, and they were like, this is the nicest thing said about it. And it's true. The jersey that they dropped, very, very nice. But it looks like a blanket, and their primary jersey looks like pajamas. So they're just preparing you to go to bed, which is how I feel whenever I have to watch the Seattle Sounders play soccer. Now, the sentiment that everyone seems to have about ranking them so high in the Shield, specifically the Shield standings, is, I think, I can understand where it comes from. They absolutely got better this offseason. But also, you're talking about a lot of hypothetical. And this team, for the past few seasons, has been get the ball around the box and just, I don't know, the goal will come, something will happen, and they'll score a goal. But they don't do a lot of goal scoring. So I think it's up to Jesus Ferreira to settle in, figure out whether or not him or Jordan Morris is the starting striker, figuring out who is going to be starting out wide. Is it going to be Paul Arriola? Is it going to be Pedro de la Vega? Does de la Vega actually become good? And whether or not Albert Rusnak can put up a season to the caliber that he did last year. That's still a lot of question marks in the attack for me. However, third place, very, very safe. Unbelievably safe for this team because they have the best defense in the league. There's no questioning that. And if rumors are to be true, they might be using a 3-back, which would allow Nuhu, who's one of the best open field defenders in the entire league, to stay back and not focus on getting forward as. So that can make their defense even better. That's why Seattle is so high on my board. I'm not really convinced about the goals, but you have to recognize the defense. I don't think the goals can come from anywhere on the field like Daniel said. I think they have to prove to their own fans that they can score goals, but their new signings should be able to help them do that. And also, the other thing that's keeping them in third place for me is a very, very congested schedule. In 2022, they famously won the CONCACAF Champions League. However, it ended up sacrificing their entire MLS season to do so. Not only are they going to be back in the Champions Cup for the first time since 2022, the year they won it, but they're also going to have to deal with the Club World Cup this summer. They have a very congested schedule. They have built a fair amount of depth, but that's a lot of games. And that's a lot of games, especially for their center backs.
Let's go from a historically successful franchise to a brand new franchise, San Diego. We got Josh 15, Jeremy 15, Dan 14. I got them at 12. Consensus is not a playoff team. I think that is a very on base kind of prediction. And it's going to be very funny at the end when they clip this specific part of the podcast after they go first in the West and put it back in our faces. But yeah, San Diego, not feeling too high on him collectively as a group here. Josh, how are you feeling about San Diego as a whole? I mean, you got him last.
Yeah, I have them last, and they're my spoon winner. Sorry if I wasn't supposed to if I was supposed to spoil that or not.
No, you're good.
But I am so unmoved by San Diego. I think the signings, should I say, of Luca De La Torre and Irving Lozano, they're great, but those are the kind of guys that you go out and sign when your team as a whole is great. I mean, Irving Lozano, he was the star man at PSV before his move to Napoli, and while at Napoli, he kind of fell off a cliff. He went from being that star man to being, regularly a sub, or he just wasn't the focal point anymore. And now coming into San Diego, he will be the focal point again. So if he can kick on, I think that he could be a shining light in this San Diego side that otherwise is not really just well put together. I'm not sold on any of their players. Like Patty McNair, like it's not 2019 anymore, right? I'm sure they went out and got him for his experience. What did you say?
Josh, that's West Brom legend Patty McNair to you.
I'm sorry.
In one game,
I'm sorry.
full on loan. He might actually be their most match fit player, which is insane to me. I also picked him
that
in
is
15.
insane.
I mean, tell us about Patty on San Diego. What could we expect to see? I should say.
Thing is, I don't know. I mean, he kind of fell off the map, right? He's sort of like an unknown entity, I think, and that's what I can describe a lot of San Diego's signings. I mean, they go out and they've signed players that no offense, I feel like I'm pretty well ingrained in the world of international soccer. I haven't heard of a lot of these players. I mean, when I saw Patty McNair again, it was like that Ian Wright video where he sees his old PE coach who we thought he was dead.
I mean,
that's what it felt like.
Luca De La Torre,
that's what I'm getting.
Anything?
Not for me. I mean, I think it's a nice story coming back to San Diego. His home is always going to be a nice story, and I'm getting like, I like it a lot, but it doesn't move me like Almiron coming back to Atlanta does. I also might just not be as big on De La Torre as a lot of other people are. I think he'll be good. I don't think he'll be anyone that moves the needle. He's not going to be that star midfielder that I think they needed. So overall, I'm not moved at all by a lot of their signings. I really think that and I mean, I don't even know who their goalkeeper is, right? So that's that's probably the most important position on the field.
Yeah.
So overall, 15th, spoon,
Daniel.
and we move on to 2026.
Daniel, what do you think?
Yes. I think prove it. For brevity's sake, I'm not going to get too deep into them, but there's so many unknowns for me that make me say San Diego can't be anything better than 13th, 14th, or 15th. So because of that, yeah, if it's 2019, yeah, you can take two star players like Luca De La Torre and Irving Lozano and be perfectly fine and probably be a playoff team in this league. But it's just not that anymore. So because of that, it's prove it for me season. If San Diego is really good enough, then prove it. And I'll believe it when I see it. But I mean, a lot of my rankings came off of known variables, and there's just so many unknowns for me there that I can't say that they're going to be a top team in the West. I can't even say they're going to be a middle of the pack team in the West.
I have them in 12th only because I think, that's not saying much at all, right? But I just think there are some teams that currently I feel I would rather, like, for vibe's sake, even with the shitty crest, even with the shitty background amongst the San Diego loyal, kind of that erasure, that aside, as a sporting project, I can get behind this San Diego team much more than my other teams I have at the bottom. Vancouver, Salt Lake, and Dallas are my bottom three. I could strongly go on one of them, but yeah, I think overall San Diego should show out. I think the goalkeeper is a big concern, though. I will give you that.
Yeah, that's the main reason I have behind them. Like, yeah, their best player is probably going to end up being De La Torre, and he's basically just a ball progressor. So if their whole plan is De La Torre gets the ball to Lozano and Lozano does something, that could be figured out really easily. But they do have a lot of unknown quantities. Um, but right now their strongest position group is probably center back, and one of those center backs is Andres Reyes. They're probably going to end up playing a back four. Andres Reyes is not very good in a back four. He's a walking mistake playing in a back four. So I'm I want to be able to believe that this team can be good in a couple years. I think they will be. But right now, like aside from all the De Bruyne nonsense that just seems to pop up every single time
It's
he gets
happening.
hurt or something like that, I just feel like this is going to be a really rough away for them. And Josh, thank you for pointing out the goalkeeper thing. They do not have one. They do not have a goalkeeper. In this league, you need a goalkeeper.
Let's talk about FC Dallas, who are part of that domino effect trade from Portland selling Evander after Cincinnati had to sell Lucho Acosta, wanted to get out of there. Dallas have Lucho Acosta a 10, but I fear the team behind Lucho is just cratered to hell. No Nkosi Tafari, Areola's gone, who is a tidy right back. Iara Mendy's gone. Like a team that would have likely benefited from Acosta last year is all gone now, and I don't see it happening here, man. I don't know. How are you guys feeling about Dallas overall? And I'm trying to see here. We got Jeremy thinks they're a playoff team at the very least, but I mean, I don't got them in the playoffs. What are you guys feeling?
I'm going to start because I do have them in the playoffs. I like a couple of their replacements. I really like signing Shaq Moore. I think that's a pretty good signing for them. League proven veteran, probably on a very big contract, but someone who is going to be fine at the very least. I think Leo Chu has a good opportunity to show his quality here. And then, most importantly, that battery up top of Acosta and Musa, that's going to be dangerous. That's going to be really dangerous. And so much of the West is filled with teams that are either question marks, either rebuilding and got really strong in the offseason, or teams that might have taken a big step back but are adding proven quality. I see the Dallas team as a team that has added proven quality, and I think that where did I have them? I had them ninth. Yeah, screw it. They make the final playoff spot in the West. Because who can really predict what's going to happen in the Western Conference this complete wide open?
Yeah, I think the West was my hardest decision here. Josh, which team did you find difficult for you to rank? Like, which team are you not sure about at the current moment?
For me, I mean, I forgot to include Austin, and so you can kind of take with that what you think. I know a lot of people are high on Austin FC. I mean, going out and snagging Brandon Vasquez is a great get, and they weren't very good last year. I do think they've improved, but it's really hard to place them. I could have them I think I had them anywhere from 5th to 12th, and I really couldn't figure it out. I also was really unsure on the Rapids. No offense, Juan. I just feel like they're kind of a question mark. Overall, I know that they've been very busy this offseason, but I just don't know if they can really improve from where they were last year. I know that there's been a lot of ingoings and outgoings, and it's hard when a team has to bond with the chemistry and they already didn't kind of have a baseline to build off of. But overall, I think probably Austin was my hardest to place.
What about you?
I
Daniel?
agree with. Oh,
sorry.
Probably Portland. You have them 5th. Josh has them 3rd. Jeremy has them 6th. I put them at 10. Main reason for that being, I think when they're healthy, I think Rodriguez and Kevin Kelsey can be an amazing duo. I just think losing Evander is such a big hit, and I know they just signed a new DP10 but he didn't get to have a preseason with them. I think they're going to take a while to hit their stride, and because of that, I do think they will end up missing the playoffs. But I mean, they were so hit and miss last year. It's hard to predict them this early on, and seeing you guys rank them so high, it's given me some doubts in my own methodology in ranking them.
I feel like it's my turn to talk about why I ranked Portland second lowest on this podcast. I didn't think it would be second lowest. I certainly didn't have them up in third. Josh, I want some of what you're smoking. But I think the biggest thing with the Timbers isn't anything that has to do with Evander. It's what they did outside of him. They brought in players to fill in every need on this roster. And this is a strong and deep team with lots of competition at position that there needed to be more competition at, specifically left back and in the midfield. So I think that last year the Timbers just conceded goals that made me say, what the hell was that? If they can just cut down on about like 20% of those, I think they're still a playoff team, and they can overcome whatever production they might be losing. And I'm going to tell you another thing. Even if Evander was still here, their defensive improvement would have absolutely pushed them farther up the table, even if Evander didn't repeat the season that he had last year. Because personally, even if he had stayed, I don't think he would have come anywhere close. But I think that Phil Neville spent this offseason making this team younger, making them more athletic, making them better in the air. All things that they struggled with. However, due to the massive improvements of other Western Conference teams, I think sixth is just like perfectly fine. And that's still a slight improvement on last year, where they were ninth and hosted a wild card game that they still managed to lose. So
and they had no business hosting.
They absolutely had no business hosting. And Vanni Sartini said, I don't believe in God, and then got fired like a month later. Really makes you think.
Yeah, my one connection here to the Box State is Ian Smith, who is joining Portland Timbers from DU. Like I've said on the other pods, I will never cap about college ball knowledge unless it's DU. And let me tell you, man, Ian Smith, I hope can really work his way into some minutes there for Portland, because he is a very fun fullback, and I personally for having seen him in some DU games, I'm kind of hoping the best for him there. Beyond DU prospects in hopefully Josh's third place team, which that is crazy, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. But beyond that, I mean, let's talk a bit about Sporting Kansas City, because
they call Jesus crazy too. That's all I'll say.
We have two playoff believers in KC, and we have two non-playoff believers in Jeremy and Daniel. Jeremy and Daniel, the floor is yours, and then I want to hear the best SKC prop that's going to come, that side of the Mississippi.
I'll let Jeremy start. His opinions, I'm not going to lie, Jeremy, your opinions always mold mine a little bit. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say, and then I'll back up with what I have to say.
Daniel, that could mean two things. One, you're very smart, or two, you're pretty dumb. I like to think that you're smart, so I'm going to go with that one. My Kansas City thoughts. I like the business. I really like the Jovic signing, but the question is, did they do enough to improve in the Western Conference, considering all of the massive improvements that have happened to teams that were around them in the table last year? I don't see it that much. I think that they are missing a bit. They're going to miss the veteran leader and Tim Melia, which I know cliche leadership, but it's going to be really interesting to watch them this year. I picked them at 11th. Yeah, 11th. That sounds about right. That's 2 points. That could legitimately be 2 points back of the playoffs if a decision day result doesn't go their way. I think they're going to be in contention, but I just think they narrowly end up missing.
Josh.
Yeah.
Or Daniel. Daniel, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sporting Kansas City, they weren't just one of the worst teams in the West in the final 10 games last year. They were one of the worst teams in the West for the entire year. Then you add in a guy like Jovic, who is a good signing, but I think he's a product, and his success last year came as a byproduct of everything that Payne, Stoll, Peck, and Pooj all opened up for him, because that was a very good LA Galaxy team that he was on. I think when you factor that into Kansas City, what they brought in, it doesn't really move the needle for me. So because of that, I can't really justify moving them up or down based off their positioning from last year. Tell me why they're going to be good, Josh.
I think you guys have both made very fair points, and I just want to echo again. The West is once you get past like second in the West, it's all a cluster. It really is. Like Jeremy's saying, having them 11th is very possible. But like you also said, that could be 2 points based off a decision day game that doesn't go their way. I have SKC in 7th, and that's lower than I had them last year. And I was not as high on them last year as I am this year. So I think my expectations have been tampered from last season. But I want to shout out everyone. We've talked about Jovic, Manu Garcia, who comes in from the Greek league as a DP10. He fills in a spot that SKC had needed to fill in ever since Gaddy Kinda left 2 seasons ago. But I think the biggest acquisition for SKC has actually been Mike Burns in the sporting director role. He came from the Revolution. The Revolution, obviously, they're probably at a similar point as SKC were. He has a lot of experience within the league, and he goes out and he signs Garcia. He also is the guy who was in charge of signing Carlos Gil, another underperforming Spanish number 10, who went on to have a great season for the Revolution. But I think that the most consequential part of his signing was actually that it frees up Peter Vermes to only have one job, and that job is to be a coach. No longer is he having to focus on doing multiple things around the organization. He's able to really just focus his attention on coaching. And for that reason, I think that SKC will be better than they were last year because Vermes' attention will be spread out. We also have a center back, Joaquin Fernandez. He signed at the end of last season. I think he only played one game, and we got trounced by FC Dallas. But we were already out of it. So overall, I'm not gonna. He's kind of like a new center back signing. I also want to shout out for 1 second Daniel Shallowy, because he's been underperforming for the past couple of years. But let me tell you why I think he'll actually have a good season. Daniel Shallowy's best season to date was his MVP caliber season in 2021. And sorry, Jeremy put a funny message in the Discord. I will not talk about his mustache. But Daniel Shallowy performs at his best when he is not the focal point of an attack. And I think over the past couple of seasons, he's been that hero ball kind of guy. He's felt like he's the one that has to dribble past 3 defenders and slot the ball in from the edge of the box. He's better when he's being brought into plays to finish them off. And we saw that in 2021 when Alan Pulido was that was probably one of his second most complete seasons beside the 2023 season. I think we'll see that again with Jovic. I think Jovic is the kind of player that will be able to bring in Daniel Shallowy, have him finish off these plays, and he'll really live up to that number 10 shirt that he got last year. So I'm higher on SKC than I was last year. I don't think that'll be enough to make them compete for anything, at the top end, but I think they'll be a playoff team, which should be the minimum for this organization.
I have a serious question for you, Josh.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no jest in this question. If you guys don't make the playoffs this year, can we finally say with some conviction that Peter Vermes will be on the hot seat?
That's Daniel, that's a great question. That would be, yeah. I mean, it depends. I really feel like the entire. It wouldn't just be the on the field results; it would be off field as well. Like, are fans still coming to games? Is the fan culture going stale? Like, Vermes' fingerprints are on everything that Sporting Kansas. So I really do think our owners consider so much more than just on the field results when it comes to whether he should keep his job or not. Because honestly, I would have fired him in that 2022 season when we finished like 12th, but we were never really competitive at all until Willie Agata and Eric Tommy showed up. I would have fired him. So it's an interesting question. I really do think the entire vibe around the club has to shift, and I think that there's a lot more hope within the club than there has been previously. So even if we don't make the playoffs, I don't think he'll get fired because I just don't think that the vibes will truly be atrocious like that.
It's up to you to make them. You got to start spreading the Vermees out propaganda.
My friends got their sign taken a couple of years ago.
Oh, you can't even express your free speech. What kind of a world is this? The woke mind virus. That's why they're going to finish last.
True. I mean, our owners donated a lot to Republican campaigns, so supposed free speech, but they won't let us carry our signs in. Just something to wonder about.
Vermees out. Let's head over to some wider individual player predictions. Golden Boot race, obviously won by Benteke last season. I'm gonna open up the floor to you guys. Who do you see getting crazy amount of goals this season?
Ooh. Daniel, do you want to
Kevin
start?
Danke.
We got
My Golden
Danke.
Boot pick.
What else we got? Throw some names out.
I think the easy one's Leo Messi if he's healthy all year.
Leo Messi.
Dennis Bouanga.
I want to say Hugo Kuipers because that's how much I'm willing to back Chicago this year. Honestly.
Wow.
I think Peter Musa is a good shout right now, particularly now that he has a real 10 to sling some balls into him.
Okay, Peter Musa. I'm trying to think. I can't really say anyone on the Rapids. I mean, I want to throw Georgie in there for the homer pick, but I mean maybe Ajman.
Who's taking the penalties?
I mean Mihailovic, hopefully.
Is Zaha that crazy of a shout? Daniel, what do you think?
I think so. Just watching him preseason, he's still got a lot of settling in to do. Particularly since I think Abada is going to be a little bit more effective this year as well as Agamane. I think it's going to be an even spread of goals for Charlotte. So I can't just pinpoint towards one guy and say, yeah, that guy's going to score a ton of goals. Like I could see like a Brandon Vasquez because I don't really know where the goals are coming from in Austin outside of that. Yeah, like when I'm thinking through this, I'm thinking like these clubs that don't have an even spread, or a guy who can just really take a club to the next level. Like I don't think a Latte Lath is a good shout because I just think they're going to spread their goals out a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Benteke Golden Boot was, in my opinion. I mean, for me,
100% what that was.
Yeah, I mean, I had no inkling that he would even come close to the Golden Boot when he joined the league. Maybe I just was a non-ball knower, but
I mean,
honestly,
who are some players
like
like
that?
that?
Showed out.
Because I have a sneaky player that I could actually put up there just for the lulz.
For interest, I'll say Joveljic.
Is it Sam Surridge?
It's not Sam Surridge.
Damn it.
Sam Surridge.
Sam Surridge is always funny.
I got a better one. Kevin Cabral.
What?
Come
You're
on.
not serious. You're
I'm
not
serious.
serious.
I'm serious.
You said this would be serious.
No way.
I'm
I'm
serious. I'm serious.
I'm gonna take everyone back to 2022 because I do think he's gonna have a really good year this year. I'm gonna say Hani Mukhtar. He's back, baby. He's back, baby.
Golden Boot though.
Oh yeah, I think he's scoring.
He didn't have to share the goal scoring.
Well, let's get into MVP shouts because I think Mukhtar would be a much more bigger MVP shout than a goal scorer boot. But who are some MVPs that you guys have? Maybe some assist leaders as well.
Ooh.
I feel like Moranchuk is going to end the season as Atlanta's MVP candidate.
Okay.
I just think he's going to get so many assists. He has a good shot from distance. So much of that attack is going to be able to create. Yeah, I'm very confident in Moranchuk. I think he's a bet. But also, there's like a little really good at soccer and stuff like that, and he might win MVP again. So,
I have a sneaky one. Hernan Lopez on San Jose.
I like
Oh,
him.
That's a good shout.
He's got a lot of options. In Amal Pellegrino, known sniper. He's got Joseph and Arango, 2 known snipers, and then you got Christian Espinoza, also a sniper. So Hernan Lopez has got to find them, honestly, and that attack's gonna be cooking, I think.
That's
I have
why I
like
picked
my
San
safe
Diego.
shout. Oh no, I'm sorry.
I just called them San Diego. Oh my god, preseason. That's why I picked San Jose in 4th in the West.
4th? Oh, damn.
Yeah, they're gonna run over people. But yeah, Hernan Lopez is a great shout for that.
Let's
I
go
have
to
my safe MVP shout, which is probably Evander. I think he's landed in the right spot to do well. And I think as we look back at this trade, this 3-way trade, I think he will have been the most successful out of everyone involved. And then kind of like I don't know if it's sneaky, but I really like Gabriel Peck. I just really rate him. I do. I think he's just got this eye for goal, but he can pass. He's young. He's exciting. He's talented, and I just love these young, exciting, talented players. So Gabriel Peck is kind of like my sneaky shout, if you can call it that.
I'm going to add one more sneaky shout because it's a team that we didn't even talk about today, but I think this guy's a baller. He was a baller in the Bundes too. Marcel Hartel. I think if St. Louis is going to be good, it's going to flow through Hartel. It's going to flow through Tuchert, and I think Hartel's going to be the guy pulling the strings there.
Does anyone feel strongly about anyone on Salt Lake?
I feel strongly that whoever wins their striker job is going to have some big shoes to fill.
Because I want to switch over to another prediction. First coach fired. Who's going to get the axe first? I think it's Pablo, man. I don't know. I don't like much of the business here that they've made, and I don't think that they've set up Pablo to be successful here. They are going to get Pablo Ruiz back, but man, after back-to-back season and season-ending injuries, I don't know how trustworthy that I don't know how sticky he is at the end of the day. But who do you guys have as the first coach getting the axe?
I find it hard to argue against Pablo, but I'm going to try because that's what this is about, creating debate.
Are you going to say Schmetzer?
No, it's not going to be Schmetzer. Schmetzer will never let anything pry him away from Seattle. Damn, I can't see a coach on here. I could not see a coach on here that's more likely.
So there's no hot seats.
I don't really think there's a hot seat right now. There's just too many new coaches.
Caleb Porter?
No, Porter, after that window, they're not going to immediately put him on the hot seat. I think I think Robin Fraser joined the job but that's not his fault. Yeah, I can't really see any of these coaches because a lot of the bad teams from last year have new coaches, and the only good team last year that carried over their same is already, like you already said, Pablo. So I think that a sneaky shout, I guess the only one I could really say is Mascherano at Miami, but that's never going to happen.
That's another one. That one would be wild. Not even. What are you going to say?
This is going to be contentious, but Oscar Pereira, I think Orlando is going to take a huge step back this year. I don't think he's going to get fired, but I think he'll be on the hot seat after this year.
I agree. I think we could see them on the hot seat as well. Another one I'm kind of thinking is Nico Estevez, because I
was going to say him too.
He is like it feels like such a lame duck coaching hire. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's still more to this Austin team. I just know there is. And if the coach that's like the least, because like I think Jeremy, hit the nail on the head there. It's like there's not going to be much teams that abandon jump ship. Maybe DC, because they kind of have a catastrophic front office, and I could see them doing that. Maybe Ben Olsen, if no talent really there for him to build off of. Gets Jack McGlynn. I know we didn't talk about Houston that much, but I mean they lost Michael Coco Carrasquilla, Jeremy's favorite player, of course. And Steve Clark, that's a big loss as well. Hector Herrera, like there's talent loss at Houston too, so I could see them pinning that on Olsen over there.
Yeah, I really like the DC shout you just said. Troilus says he's going to be on the hot seat after this year too.
Yeah,
I could see it.
I don't think it's through his own fault, though. Unfortunately,
no, definitely not. Let's talk about defense. Who's going to be the best defensive team? Early shouts for Charlotte. I want to put out the Rapids there. Just Wazium is such an improvement over Abubakar, and Reggie Cannon, full preseason, is going to be in a much better position, hopefully as a right center back of a back three. Atencio, like if there's one thing the Rapids improved on, it's defense. I think a good defense is what got them to 2016, so I think we see that as well. Any other shouts for big defenses?
To Charlotte, pause. I'm not saying anything else. Charlotte.
Jeremy, you were saying?
Juan, do you want me to pull up Zach Steffen's post-shot expected goal differential from last year?
I mean,
That's some hater shit, man.
I'm right there with you.
It's
I'm
really
right there
funny.
with you. I'm right there with you.
It's really funny. I do like the Rapids defense a lot. I think they're going to be improved, but like Zach Steffen left a lot of saves on the table because those balls were too busy hitting the back of his own net. So I think he has to once again prove why he was so attractive in this league that man ended up buying him. My pick is still the Seattle Sounders. And it's pretty self-explanatory because they make games boring, and it isn't just their counter press.
Josh, who do you have as the best defense in MLS?
I mean, I said it earlier when I was talking about them, but FC Cincinnati, they are just a well-oiled machine. They dominate games, and even if they're on the back foot, I mean, that back three, especially with Miazga and Robinson, if they're just healthy the whole season, oh my gosh, that is just the stuff of dreams. So for me, it's going to be FC Cincinnati.
Now let's talk the other side of the table. Let's talk about shoddy defenses. Those are always the best. Philadelphia comes to mind just because, again, 3 center backs on the roster. What are we doing, right? Any other bad defenses here you guys are seeing? I mean, RSL are one center back injury away from having a rough back line there. But any other defenses here for you guys that are just not doing it for you?
San Jose.
I'll touch on. Oh, okay.
No, go ahead. Touch on 2 words. San Jose. Go ahead.
I want to say Sporting Kansas City. I know I was talking up their offense and everything, but oh my god, their defense was really bad last season, and we lost Andre Fontas in the offseason, and I know I was talking about Joaquin Fernandez, and he's kind of like a new signing, but if he doesn't perform well, it can be really hard. So it'll just be really hard. It is such a ways away from the Beezer Opara Amelia days in 2018. I really do not rate Sporting's chances on the defensive side of the ball.
Daniel?
Again, 2 words. San Jose. I mean, I think they're going to score a ton of goals, but it's still the same defense as last year. So,
to San Jose's defense, their defense last season was inconsistent and shaky, and their main guy, Bruno Wilson, did not play due to injury. I think Bruno Wilson kind of fits as a re-addition into the squad. as like not a new signing, but he feels like a new signing in the sense that if he can get out to just a bare minimum form, just decent center back form. It doesn't even have to be, Seattle levels, but I want to back the San Jose back line a little bit here, just because they do have some talent there, I believe.
I also want to back their goalkeeper, Daniel, who was one of the best goalkeepers in the league in 2023 and was injured for most of last season. My pick for worst defense, though, is Toronto, because I don't think they're going to be good going forward. I don't think they're very good at the back. I don't know what happened to Sean Johnson when he put on a Toronto jersey, but I don't think he's the same player anymore. So, yeah, run it back with Toronto just allowing a ton of goals. Even though Robin Fraser's first step is probably going to be, let's make this team defensively solid so they can at least be competitive. I just don't think it happens. They don't have the horses on that team.
DC is my other pick, just because, Matty Peltola is not a long-term solution there. So I'm really down on DC. I shared it in the group chat, like, for any NBA fans. Let's see if I can pull it up. I think is some coach or GM said that, I have the quote here. There's different structures you can try to get to a championship. There's 2 to 3 star players and then a lot of role players, or you can build it as 9 to 10 very good players. He says they're building toward the latter model. I cannot think of a more, better description than DC, who have a bunch of Jags. Now, if you know what a Jag is, they're just a guy. They're just, nobody moves the needle here for me for DC. And I think they are really close to my wooden spoon, if not for Toronto, which is a hot mess. But yeah, that's my spiel on DC. Any other bad defenses to throw out? I guess convinced in the Galaxy's defense. Zanka.
Yeah, I'm convinced with the Galaxy. I think they're gonna have to deal with a lot of minutes, but I think they're certainly gonna be a defense that can still hang in games, and they did improve a lot down the stretch last year.
Yeah, I think their midfield and offense will carry them enough that they're not going to be on their heels as much as like a team like Toronto or I guess Kansas City would be. So yeah, that's going to save them a lot. I don't think defense is their strongest point, but offensively they'll be able to control enough of possession that they shouldn't be super exposed. If that makes sense.
I also think I feel like I'd feel a lot better about LA if they kept Jalen Neal. I really like Jalen Neal, but yeah, just echoing what Daniel and Jeremy already said, I think that they're just a good enough team that they're not having to rely on that foundational defense.
Let's talk transfer busts. Which hyped signing will completely flop? I got a bit of a hot take here, but I want to open up the floor to you guys. Who's your transfer bust for the upcoming season? Who's just not the signing you think is him?
Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting.
Tell us about him, man. He's a PSG icon.
I just don't think he's going to be... I don't think he's the right fit at all for what Red Bull's game model is. I also hesitate to call him a bust, but I think if you're debating what the level he was at last year versus the new team that he's going to and the expectations that he's going to at least match that level or exceed it, I'm going to say Evander.
Ooh,
but also,
okay.
That's going to be due to an adjustment period. I know he's a good player, very good deliverer of free kicks, maybe not so much on corner kicks, but I don't think he's going to reach the same heights that he did last year. I think a 10-10 season for him would be considered a success. I don't know if he gets it, though. I think he gets the assists. I don't think he's able to keep up the scoring like he did last year.
Damn, the Evander slander, the turnaround.
That's not even just slander, because even if he was still in Portland, I think he'd take a bit of a backslide, too.
Okay,
like that was a historically great season he had last year.
So you're expecting...
I think it's tough for anyone to repeat that.
some regression
fair.
there. Who else do you guys
I'm-
have as a bust?
I'm gonna say Luciano Acosta.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
it's
Yeah,
it's not gonna be his fault. First off, amazing business by Dallas. They got him on a steal in terms of transfer fee value. They have some good players in Dallas. None of us rate Dallas very, very highly for different reasons. Few people in this chat don't think they have the talent. I'm a believer that they do have the talent. It was just patchworked together very, very, very last minute with zero time to gel. And because he was their star signing, people are gonna look at him like he's the issue. Because that's what happens, particularly with his history at Cincinnati. People now think he's a crybaby, and it's gonna fall down on him. It's gonna collapse hard, and it's not gonna be a good look. And it's nothing that he can control. He can't help that half of that starting 11 was not on that team prior, and because of that, there's gonna be no chemistry, and it's just gonna be a nightmare. So I'm gonna go with Luciano Acosta. I don't think he's wearing a Dallas uniform in a year.
Okay, yeah, that's because
damn.
I want to echo the sentiments that when Cincy was in bad form, there was no Luciano Acosta dragging you out of that form. When they had a shaky back line, it wasn't like Lucho like rose to the occasion and carried the team on his back. There were moments of that when he had a decent back line, but he's going to a team whose back line hinges on Sebastian Ibeaga, who's on the wrong side of 30, Wallace Abubakar coming off a lot of decline in just, production, just has not been the defender he once was. And then they have I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but they have a League 2 defender coming in as well. I don't see any of those three guys being enough to, stop the wave that is the West. The West is just too good. And I don't know if Acosta can. We will see if Acosta is a system 10, honestly, because that's going to be a big narrative there in Dallas. Any other?
Can he do it? Can he do it on a 110-degree evening in Dallas? That's
Frisco?
the question.
In Frisco.
In Frisco. my bad.
98% humidity.
While half the building is being rebuilt for renovations.
I do love Dallas's just constant desire to always be building something during the season. You really have to hand it to them.
They're like the actual crew, like the builder crew like logos. They should give them that one. Any other busts for you guys?
Bring back the old crew badge.
I hope so. Well, maybe one day.
I already talked about him, but Jonathan Bamba, I'm just not moved by at all. I
Boo.
kind of followed him after he left Lille, selfishly because of a FIFA 21 card I packed, and he was pretty good. And so I kind of followed his career, and he just never hit the heights that he did in that 2020-2021 Lille season. And maybe he'll come good, honestly, but I just don't see it. I don't think Chicago is the right place for him to come good. I don't think that he'll be the return. He'll have the return and the impact that Chicago need him to have. Let's
talk MLS Cup champions. Who is your guys' initial pick coming out of an upcoming weekend of MLS? If you were to lay down your cards right now, who is going to win MLS Cup? Let's start with Daniel.
I'm gonna sound incredibly biased here.
I know.
But I'm gonna say Charlotte FC.
You said I knew it.
That's why we went to you first. I knew it.
I don't think they have, from top to bottom, the best roster in the East. I think they have one of the deepest rosters in the East, and if they can catch form, like their best version of their form, at the end of the season, and finally find the best 11 that works together, I do think that they can make a push, simply because of how deep they are and how many combinations that they have in the midfield, how many combinations that they can have up top. So yeah, I'm super high on them. I just think, I picked them 2 to finish the season in the East. But I don't think that's that absurd of a statement. I can finally say that after 3 years, and that feels good to say.
Jeremy, who do you have?
I picked Cincinnati to win the Shield, and that means they're not going to win the Cup.
So
the next most likely team is the only team that did the Shield Cup double was that LAFC team in 2022, and even so, they barely did it. They barely were able to do it. It's tough to win the Shield and win the Cup.
They need
There's
to
a
bail.
curse that comes with it. It's very funny to watch crash. So, my pick for the 2025 MLS Cup champion is Atlanta United, because they're going to find a way to get it done in the playoffs. Because they found a way to get it done in the playoffs last year when no one thought they. Now people are going to think that they can, and they will.
Josh, what do you have?
Yeah, I picked Atlanta to win the Shield, and I don't think they'll win the Cup.
Okay.
So I think I want to go for. I think I'm high. I know we haven't talked about them, but Minnesota have something building up there. They have a project,
Yeah.
and
Yes, I do.
and I think like overall, I feel like they're low key kind of slept on. I like the culture up in Minnesota, and I would really I'd like to see them win something. I think that they're kind of an organization that deserves to win something just based on the way that they came up and all the struggles that they've gone through. I know we haven't talked about them a lot, but Minnesota are going to be sneaky good this year, and I think they were really high in all of our rankings. So overall, I think that they could put together a run and take the cup.
You're speaking about Minnesota being like really high in all of our rankings. I was the only one here who picked them to top the West.
I just
because
couldn't do it
that's
in
how
my heart of hearts.
That's how wide open I feel the West is. They do have an open DP spot. They're going to get a DP number 6 to fill that spot. And they are a team that no one likes to play against because they're so physical, they're so fast, they're so well organized, and they're just going to keep getting better in year 2 under Eric Ramsey. I think it ends a Western Conference championship for the regular season. I don't see them being the West's representatives in MLS. Somehow LAFC is just going to do it again. It just feels like another year that LAFC wins the West and then loses to Atlanta in a game that Atlanta will. So, yeah, I don't really see Minnesota making as deep of a playoff run as they could, but their regular season will be.
I am going to say that if it does, I mean, I think MLS Cup final is Atlanta's to lose at this point, right? So I do think they lose the final. I don't think they make it to the MLS Cup final. I think if a Western Conference team hosts, it'll likely be against Cincinnati, and then the Western Conference team is either LAFC. I think it would be LAFC and Cincinnati in MLS Cup final, and I think that's another LAFC win there. We haven't really talked about LAFC, but I mean, I think a lot hinges on a Mr. Antoine Griezmann joining the league. We know it's going to happen. It's like just kind of a wait and see. If it doesn't, Cengiz Under is also pitched and promised. So we'll see how that goes. But any other final predictions? Wild chaos. Standings. Any other bold takes before we wrap this one up?
I don't want to drag this out too much longer, but what do you guys think of Under's $25 million sell-on clause? That seemed a bit high.
That's his sell-on clause? For who?
Yeah. Under.
But like to the club or for his release clause?
His release clause. Not his release clause. Like that's how much they would have to pay if they wanted to keep him.
Damn.
What? Are you serious?
$25 million. Yeah. That would be an MLS record, correct?
Yeah, it would be. It would certainly top Emmanuel Latte Last.
I don't think he's worth that. Don't do that, LAFC. What are you doing over there?
What if he is worth it though, Juan? What if he is?
How many goals would he have to score for you to say, okay, he's worth $25 million to the LAFC?
Probably have Vela or better.
More than he scored in his career so far.
That's correct.
That's fair.
I don't think Under's been that good, like
No,
ever.
he's been kind of a middling
honestly.
player.
Yeah, I mean, his best season was his best goal total was 13. Like, and that's not in one season, just at one club, and that was at Roma.
Of all the
I
teams, I
mean,
think
10 and 32 is pretty good, but yeah.
of all the teams I think we are rating highly, I think LAFC just kind of gets de facto nods, but there is a world where they just, they lose a lot of talent. You know what I mean? They have lost a lot of talent, and Bogusz and Oliveira is a big loss, and it doesn't feel nearly as much of a gravitas as I feel it should be. But yeah, there is a world where maybe LAFC don't rise to the top here. So I don't know. Maybe that's my bold take.
They have a good defense, though. They have a good defense.
Yeah.
Even if the goals don't come, they have a good defense.
It's valid. It's very valid. Any other bold takes? Josh, you have a wild SKC take in you?
I feel like my wild SKC take is that they make the playoffs.
I think they do. I think they could do it, honestly.
No, I don't think I have. I'll say for SKC, watch out for Jake Davis this year. I think he gets in the U.S. youth national team setup and he becomes a mainstay there. Because he'll be playing. I feel like he'll be playing in his desired central midfield position, and we will see Kyrie Shelton as the right back. And watch out for Kyrie, man. He locked up Dennis Bwanga in that U.S. Open Cup final. And if that had gone differently, we'd be talking about him as the starting right back for the USMNT. So,
man, okay, that's bold. I'll take it. I
was
got
bold.
exactly what I wanted. Jeremy, you have any other spice to add before we close this one out?
I wanted to talk about Austin for a little bit because out of the four of us, I ranked them the highest. I think fifth and last this year. I do have faith in Estevez as a coach. I don't think he's as lame duck of a coach as Juan says he is. But I think their most important signing is not Mirto Uzuni. It is not Brandon Vasquez. It is the free transfer of central midfielder Besard Sabovic, who is someone that is unique to me and in my soccer universe.
Okay,
because he is a player
I'm here for this.
I wanted at both of my clubs. I wanted him to become a West Bromwich Albion player in the summer. And eventually, after his contract ran out in December, I wanted them to sign him in January. However, he was getting linked with MLS clubs like Real Salt Lake, Austin, the LA Galaxy, and the Portland Timbers too. So,
The second
when
team?
it became clear, not the second team. No. When it became clear that he was looking towards America, the West Brom dream died. Not fully, even though he'd still do a job for the Baggies right now. But my focus turned towards, well, Brom can't have him. Maybe the Portland Timbers can, especially because he's on a free. And they could probably fit his salary into the cap. Instead, he chose the worst possible destination imaginable, Austin, Texas. But he's a very good soccer player. So, I think him and his presence in the midfield, because he can play as a 6, he can play as an 8, he can play as a 10. He's going to be a very, very good player for Austin and might arguably be more important to their success than any number of goals that Brandon Vasquez scored. And I feel 100% confident in talking about that. Austin will be very improved. They will be more solid. They have a better midfield. They have a better attack. They're going to be a good team again.
My shout for Austin is Nicholas Dubersarski. If you look at his highlight reel, the dude he's got it. He is just fucking amazing. Reads the game very well. Is just an electric defender, and he is like a holding midfielder. He's a U22 holding midfielder. This guy is probably my U22 pick to ball out, but of all the signings Austin have Duber Sarski, man, like go watch his highlight reel, and you're kind of gonna be sad because I'm like, fuck, I want this on the Rapids so bad. But Austin have a great player there. Hopefully it works out there. Let's start with Josh. Where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter at Josh Bathtub, as well on TikTok at Josh Bathtub. And starting up for this season, I also have an SKC fan page on Instagram called Off to See the Wizards. I'll be doing content at games, content at away games, and I really like the name, so go follow me.
That's a class name. Hats off to you.
You like it, right? You like that? Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Daniel, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at VoxProMLS. You'll also see me as Major League Shill.
Jeremy, where can we find you?
You can find me on the Elon app at Sports Guy Jeremy. You can find me on the Butterfly app at jeremypeterman.bsky.social, all lowercase. You can also find my work online at cascadiafc.substack.com, where yesterday I just published a monster article detailing all of the reasons and all the ways that the Timbers sucked at defending last year and how they can fix it. It's an unofficial season preview. But yes, it took me almost 3 weeks to write between various work shifts and just all the statistical analysis I did. But it's very much worth a read. So I would encourage you to go take a look at it. Even if you don't like the Portland Timbers. Or even if you're a sicko and you just want to see some really, really...
Wait, you cut out there. Some really what?
Some really bad defending. Like, there were some highlights in there that I was clipping, and I was like, I can't believe this is real. I can't believe how bad this is. But yes, it's very enjoyable. I can encourage you to give it a read.
It's that whole saying, defense wins championships. You can find me at Wanners715 on Twitter, at Wanners.bsky.social. Follow Box State Footy at Box State Footy on X. Be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify Podcasts. Leave a comment. Really helps us get this sucker off the road and into everybody else's ear holes. So thank you guys for tuning in to Outside the Box. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.